afternoon, sports fans. This is Campbell Woods, Marist Men's Rowing, coming at you with our week 3. Is it week 3? I guess, yeah, week 3 race recap update here. We had our annual dual race with the Temple, Holy Cross, and Hobart cruise earlier this morning, which has now officially been named the Mike Quinn Cup. Mike Quinn was a Temple graduate and a known entity to the 3 other coaches who are participating in this duel today, who were all Temple grads. And so this cup got named for him. The morning started off with our 4v8. That boat only raced with Holy Cross. Overall, it was a pretty simple piece. Holy Cross was able to get maybe 2 seats in the earlier part of the race, and then held that margin and gradually expanded it during the first 1,000 meters. Marist made a pretty nice push in the third 500 to try to come up even with Holy Cross and made things interesting, but then Holy Cross had a nice final gear in their final 500 and were able to close out the race. So Holy Cross won that by it was about a length over Marist, so about 3 or 4 seconds. The 3v race, Marist got out to a decent start. Coming into the 500 meter mark, it was like pretty even boats across. Marist was a little bit back on some of the other crews, but was kind of in the fight. Down the course of the first part of the race, it became pretty clear that Holy Cross was really pushing out with Hobart. Hobart and Holy Cross, both of their 3Vs were really strong. And actually, Hobart was ahead for a good amount of the first 1,000 meters, but Holy Cross went with them. And Temple did not. Temple was kind of hanging back with Marist. And so it was like Holy Cross and Hobart maybe a length up, and then Marist and Temple, a length behind. And Marist was behind Temple like 2 or 3 seats. The third 500, Holy Cross made a huge move up in the front and were able to pull up ahead of Hobart. Hobart kind of opened up a little bit more water over Temple, and Marist made a big move to get back even with Temple. I'm not sure if they got like fully back even, but definitely got reconnected where they were like 3 or 4 seats down. And then in the last 500 meters, Holy Cross walked away to a big win. The Hobart 8 was probably a length, maybe even a length and a half of open water behind them. And they were a length of open water ahead of Temple, who were next. And then Temple was probably a little bit of open water, maybe a seat or 2 of open water over the Marist crew at the finish line. In the 2V, probably Marist's best fight of the day, although the Varsity 8 was very good as well. The 2V got out to an early lead over Hobart and Temple, and were fighting with Holy Cross very similar to the first two races, Holy Cross had an exceptional third 500 and were able to draw out to about a 6-seat lead. And Marist made a nice sprint to try to push up and get closer to Cross. But the Holy Cross guys were able to lengthen their lead in the last 500 with their sprint. So it ended up being Holy Cross to win the race by about a length over Marist, and then Marist another length back to Temple, and then another length back to Hobart. So that was a strong race. The varsity eights were very tight, very good racing all around. Temple took at the 500 meter mark is actually Marist by a fraction of a seat in first place over all the other crews. Temple, it was clear, was really strong and came on pretty quick. And then Marist had maybe 3 or 4 seats over Holy Cross in that earlier part of the race. And third 500, Holy Cross was able to put that same big move down, and Marist was not able to respond. And so it ended up in the last 500, Temple had kind of been protecting a 6-seat lead over Marist and Holy Cross, and in the last 500, Temple was able to open up a little bit and won that race by about a length. So it was Temple, and then a length back to Holy Cross, length back to Marist, and then about a length and a half back to Hobart from there. Overall impressions of the day, it's a tough day. We were the only program that did this event as a day trip this year, and so the race times were a little early. We had to leave uncomfortably early this morning, and I think it's hard to get off the bus and have your best race after being cramped up on a bus, regardless of what time you wake up. So that was a challenge, but I think the athletes made the most of treating the race day properly. They were well fueled, had a really good long warm up once we got on site, and I think we're ready to go. I think the 4B showed some great fight. The main goal in that event was to really get into a good scrap, and I think we did with Holy Cross. One of the challenges in that boat, I think, in practice is that sometimes when the other crews are started even or are able to get a seat or two, they fold up a little bit. And so it was cool to see them put in the full fight today all the way to the finish line. And I think you can see that in the times that they pulled a pretty decent time in comparison to the third varsity's time, and so that was cool to see. The 3V, we are convinced we are missing something or can do better. So we're going to be back to the drawing board a little bit this week, and Coach Stratton and I aren't sure what that is going to look like, but there's probably some opportunities to shake up that lineup, either who is in that boat or the arrangement of who's in that boat. So we have a nice 3-week-long period between now and the Dad Veil that we have some time to re-examine that boat and see if we can eke out some more speed from that segment of the crew. The 2V, I think, has shown really fantastic fight. We actually did make a rearrangement in that crew this week, just based on the video we were seeing and some of the telemetry data that we were looking at on our new X-Boat system, gave us the idea to try out a bucket rig in our 5 and 6 seat behind the stroke pair. So we moved our 5 seat up into 6 seat in a bucket behind 7, and then 4 up behind him, and that seemed to be a pretty effective switch. We didn't have a lot of time to develop that in practice, and it showed some immediate promise in practice in terms of the amount of force we were getting out of it, the amount of wattage and the length of the boat. And so we came in today feeling pretty confident that we had actually found some speed by just rearranging the bodies who were in that boat, and that was, I think, borne out in our race. I think we had a phenomenal race with that boat. It showed a lot of fight, and also showed some of that length that we had found by adjusting our lineup. The varsity, they kept their lineup this week from last week. I think we performed very well. This is an extremely challenging group of schools, so it was cool to see. One of our objectives in that race was that last week, in our duel on Lake Occoquan, we allowed the Hobart crew to get a pretty big jump on us off the start line of about 7 or 8 seats. And so one of the objectives this week was to not let that crew get away, and then also to really go after Holy Cross. And I think we did both of those things today. I think Holy Cross just had the legs on us today and had a well-executed plan. And so we are, I think the varsity came off feeling like we had a good race. We do feel like we can get more out of this boat in terms of our technical ability. The group is really, really loving and enjoying rowing together. So there's a really, really strong, emotional chemistry in that boat right now. And I think you can see that in the way that they're racing and the willingness to really put themselves into every race, 1,000% of their effort every time. And so we're just gonna be taking a look this week at really throughout the crew, trying to figure out where are the places that we can gain a little bit of speed, gain a little bit of power, whether it's rearranging a couple people within crews or taking a look at a couple little seat races between 1 or 2 athletes. There's definite opportunities to make some gains, and we have, like I said, a nice window between now and the Dad Veil to take a good hard look and see if we can find that last little bit of speed in each of these crews. So overall, a really good morning. I think if you look back at our results from this event last year, it is a night and day difference in the overall performance of the crew. And I think that reflects a big change in fitness year over year, but it also reflects a huge change in mentality of this crew. And so a big kudos to the athletes who are returners, who helped make that change possible, and also to our new freshmen this year who have been a major part of that change as well. These guys have really found a good mentality around our race days and the way that we approach racing. And so Coach Stratton have been really enjoying just the open aggression and love of competition that this group has is really fun to be around on race day, and is definitely contributing to some good results. So big props to the fellas for a good day. Congrats to Temple, who took home the first officially named edition of the Mike Quinn Cup, and we're looking forward to this matchup for next year again. This is one of the highlight races of our season, so it was really good for the crew and everyone to have us be much more back in the mix at this year's event than we were last year. We have another race this coming weekend with the Fairfield Stags here at home in Poughkeepsie. Racing for that will start around 10 o'clock. And we're going to have a nice senior day celebration around noon on Saturday to celebrate our outgoing class of 2026. And special thanks to all the parents who are here today. And we'll look forward to seeing a lot of you next weekend. And then 2 weeks after that is going to be the Dad Vale Regatta, which is our championship down in Philly. So we'll be getting ramped up for that event. But for now, it was a good day. Week 3, we feel like Marist probably will retain our national week ranking this week, barring any crazy unforeseen circumstances. And so that was a really good feeling this past week, midweek, to have some really good efforts be rewarded by putting a number up on that ranking board for the first time in a while. We'll be looking forward to seeing many of you next weekend, and then also at the Dad Vale. And in the meantime, we hope everyone has a great weekend, and go Red Foxes.